What happens when two hip-hop architects reunite to restore the foundation of the culture? Can soul, boom bap, and grown man wisdom still move the crowd in 2025? Let's talk about it. What's good, everyone? It's your man Lighthouse, and you're now tuned into another episode of Everything for Everybody. And today we're jumping into what I'd call a modern day masterpiece from two certified legends, Common and Pete Rock. That's right, we're talking about Auditorium Volume 1. Now, last week I revisited Common's classic B for its 20th anniversary. And one of my video descriptions, it seemed like my phraseology fucked the game up, right? I asked if the re-release might rekindle Common's legacy. But looking back, rekindle wasn't the right word because, let's be clear, Common never fell off, his career is still vibrant, and his voice still vital. And it would be a disservice if I didn't take a moment to properly break down this monumental project that he and Pete Rock dropped last year. If you ever needed proof that hip-hop can still age with grace, purpose, and poise, the Auditorium Volume 1 is your answer. Common and Pete Rock reunite, this time not just for one track, but for an entire album-length performance that plays like a curated exhibit of rap's golden essence. The connection between them isn't just history, it's harmony. The album cover itself, a shot of Brooklyn's century-old King's Theater, cleverly frames the two as co-headliners of a lyrical stage play. Even the name, the Auditorium, feels intentional. It's an invitation like, if you want to see real hip-hop, this is where you're gonna have to see it, right here with us. Pete Rock lays a bluesy foundation on We're On Our Way, where Common channels Gil Scott-Heron over a chopped Curtis Mayfield sample, turning tales of Chicago's blight into a sermon on progress. The song Fortunate is more freeform, autobiographical, breezy, yet grounded in gratitude. The track So Many People featuring Bilal nods to the Soulquarian era with a bass line that struts like it's wearing sundress confidence. Common uses personification here to turn women into metaphors for fate and inner purpose, linking every verse with intention. Then there's A God There Is, a deeply spiritual duet with Jennifer Hudson that reminds us how grounded Common's always been, into something bigger. Pete Rock even hops on the mic for all kinds of ideas and surprises with bars of his own. Stellar earns its name pairing boom bap and celestial metaphors like when I return to the dust, it'll be a sandstorm. The vintage sampling on Lonesome and the single Wise Up, which loops a classic MC Shan hook, show the duo's ability to modernize nostalgia with surgical precision. The tail end of the album offers reflection without slowing the tempo. When the Sun Shines Again brings in positive news for a jazzy throwback that's pure like water for chocolate energy. Everything's so grand, and now and then provide a final moment of introspection before the curtain closes with a spoken word outro. The Auditorium Volume 1 isn't just a victory lap for two hip-hop legends, it's a blueprint for how rap can evolve without abandoning its DNA. This feels less like a comeback and more like a masterclass. And given the Volume 1 in the title, Common and Pete Rock clearly aren't finished. Let's hope the encore is already in the works, because this is definitely a classic album. To me, this album is really good. And I stress the importance of like our elder statesmen actually getting back in the studio and still continuing with the music. Hip hop has grown where, you know, different classes and different eras have aged out, and sometimes they haven't embraced the new soundscapes and the new sound beds. And what's important here is that Pete Rock and Common are considered elders in the space, and they're well respected, they're icons and they're legends. But it's good to know that the people that I grew up listening to, they're still doing their thing and doing numbers. This is like a Grammy nominated album, you know what I mean? Like, this album is super fire, and the production is good. It's very cohesive and coherent for the two to pair together. You know, this is like a super team, if you will. Like, you know, it's like getting a giant from over here and a giant over here and coming together and just crushing shit, you know? So for anyone who hasn't listened to this album, you're bugging out, you know what I mean? And like, you know, I had to spin this back and do this episode because, you know, I misspoke, you know? Common doesn't need to rekindle anything. Like, Common is still here, he's still kicking ass, he teamed up with Pete Rock, and we got some heat right here. That's my time, y'all. You know, I just had to run it back for Common and Pete Rock, you know. I misspoke in my descriptions. You know, you gotta be careful with what you say because people will check. And that's a good indication that, you know, people are engaging with the content. And, you know, if there's something, you know, that you don't agree with, let me know. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, I'm a person, I'm here for the music. I love the music. So I ain't mean to say it like that. You know what I'm saying? That, you know, the album was rekindling. What I meant to say is that, you know, we're having the anniversary and re-releasing it is like rekindling the legacy of that album. Like, the album is fire, you know what I mean? Like, B is a classic. And the Auditorium Volume 1 arguably can be a classic as well. You know, we need some time to go by and, like, you know, see if it plays well, you know, maybe 5-10 years from now. I think it will. And yeah, I just had to come back and get y'all, you know, just to make sure so y'all know I'm on point with my shit. It's just, you know, I may have said the wrong word. You know what I'm saying? With that being said, thank you for watching another episode of Everything for Everybody. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see y'all later. Peace. We out of here. Let's go.